So, so something really funny happened. This is great. So, so something really funny happened, and this is just fantastic. So, I I typed here. I typed in how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. I did it. That's what I asked. That's what I typed in. And well, I got an answer. The answer the the answer I got was
None. A woodchuck doesn't chuck wood. It's a groundhog, and chuck here is just wordplay, so there isn't an actual amount it could chuck.
yep. Yep. Now, it gave me a follow up, but I was dying at this point. I was just laughing my ass off, sort of like I am right now. So let's
None.
just
A woodchuck doesn't chuck wood. It's a groundhog, and chuck here is just wordplay, so there isn't an actual amount it could chuck. If you mean the playful tongue-twister answer, as much wood as a woodchuck could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood.
so knew the answer. Just yeah. Anyway. Anyway. Then then uh then we had a follow up. Yeah. Then there was a follow up. I said I said I said you're a woodchuck. And then it said
All right then, if I'm a woodchuck, I'd chuck exactly 700 pounds of wood, which, fun fact, was an estimate from a wildlife biologist who calculated how much dirt a groundhog can move and converted that to wood. So yes, I chuck professionally.
okay. All right. Now, I know that this is like the funniest shit you've ever heard in your entire life, okay? Um so, you're going to have to contain yourselves as much as I am. But um then I follow it up with you could always chipmunk your way through the process, since they are monks, they chuck wood faster. And then it.
Ah, yes, the legendary Chipmunk Order of Rapid Lumber Redistribution. They don't just chuck wood, they achieve inner chip first. But careful, a chipmunk isn't a monk, and a monk doesn't necessarily chuck. Different skill trees, different upgrades. A woodchuck relies on raw burrowing strength, groundhog grit, high endurance stats. A chipmunk relies on speed, cheek storage expansion, +5 agility, -10 carrying capacity. Now if you multi-class, woodchuck, chipmunk hybrid build. That's 700 pounds moved serenely. Would you like to spec into Bark Arts or Log Fu next?
Log Fu. I love this. So then, we didn't stop there. We didn't stop there. Oh, it didn't stop there. No. No. I didn't load up on Duke. Shit. Okay. It didn't stop there. It didn't stop there. Then I said, yes. But let's add a glider equipment function with a stamina bar, so that way you can increase the length of time you can glide as you level up from chucking wood.
Excellent. We are now clearly designing Woodchuck RPG, Forest Ascension. Shadow core character, Woodchuck, Chipmunk, hybrid class, Chuck Adept, subclass, Chipmunk of the floating log. Primary resource, stamina. Secondary resource, inner bark energy, like glider equipment system. Starter gear, barkleaf glider, crafted from enchanted maple leaves, flexible twigs. Unlocks after level 3 woodchucking. Allows short distance glide after jumping from hills, stumps, or ego boosts. Base stats, glide time, 3 seconds, stamina drain medium, landing style, questionable but heroic. Stamina bar mechanics. Your stamina bar governs chucking wood, sprinting through forest zones, gliding distance, chipmunk meditation boosts leveling up. Every successful woodchuck grants plus XP, max stamina, glide efficiency, level, max stamina, glide time, passive bonus, 100, hop splinters resistant 5, 130, 6 sec reduced bark drag, 10, 170, 10 sec airborne chuck,
It's just
20,
reading
240,
the
18
graph.
sec thermal
Well,
riding, 30,
but-
320, 30 sec enlightened glide, advanced mechanics. Wind draft detection. Higher levels reveal updrafts near tall trees, ridge thermals, eagle-approved flight paths. New ability, mid-air chuck. At level 12, throw wood while gliding, generates combo multipliers. Forest NPCs become impressed. Ultimate skill, Zen of the Flying Chuck. Activate full chipmunk focus. Stamina drains slowly.
Full
Time
chipmunk
feels
focus.
slower. Leaves swirl dramatically for no gameplay reason. Cooldown 1 long winter. Would you like to unlock multiplayer woodland raids, boss squirrels, or the legendary chainsaw of Forbidden Progress next?
So then it didn't stop there. We kept going. And maybe I perhaps told it some parameters to give me some art. You know, based on what we were talking about. Just maybe I told it some parameters to give me some art. There you go. There you go. I said, let's get some cartoony sort of OpenGL style woodchuck and groundhog art to show what the characters will look like, but also, yes, definitely the other stuff you said too. So, you know, we're gonna get to that too. But, look at this. Isn't this great? So there you go. Awesome, right? It did the glider really well, too. Love it. So, I'll move this down. Now the other stuff.
Absolutely. Let's bolt the rest of the features onto the design so it all clicks together with the glider plus stamina plus chucking to level core. Multiplayer woodland raids. Party rolls, simple, cartoony, readable. Chuck tank chuck, taunts with defiant chitter, builds bark armor from thrown logs. Chipmunk support, drops Zen totems, acorns that regen stamina, buff glide efficiency.
Wait till it gets to boss names.
Striker, burrow pop crits, tunnel flank, repositioning. Beaver engineer optional unlock, deploys bridges, ramps that create glide launch points. Hash raid loop, 10 to 20 min. One gather phase. Chuck wood to build raid structures, ramps, barricades, totem traversal phase, glide between canopy platforms, avoid wind hazards. 3 boss phase, stagger weak point gameplay, loot roll. 4 camp phase, craft upgrades, pick next raid node on the map. Boss squirrels. Boss, Baron Nuttingham, wears a cracked acorn crown, uses nut barrage, ranged, tailspin cyclone, AoE and tree run dive, tracking attack. Stamina interaction, key design. Dodges cost stamina. Getting clipped increases stamina drain for 5 seconds. Panic breathing. Perfect dodges run a chunk of stamina. Feels skillful. Weak points. Cheeks, overstuffed. Stun window. Crown, break it, phase change. Hap a legendary chainsaw of forbidden progress. Endgame artifact. Theme. It's a 2 modern weapon sealed by forest spirits. Using it is powerful, but it upsets nature and spawns consequences. Gameplay. In combat, huge damage versus wood-type enemies and shields. Out of combat, can cut shortcut paths but triggers a forest alert meter. Forest alert meter, low, nothing happens. Medium, elite squirrel patrols spawn. High, spirit boss invades your instance.
That's not
you
bad.
have angered the root cord. So it's an opt-in risk-reward tool. Speedrunning versus staying harmonious. How it all ties into leveling plus gliding. Chucking becomes your universal progression action. Chucking wood grants XP, max stamina, glide efficiency, less drain per second, crafting mats, bark, resin, vine cords. New stat, glide mastery improves, airtime, turn control, updraft capture radius, mid-air chuck accuracy. New systems to support the chaos. 1. Forest map nodes, raid groves, multiplayer. Wind ridges, gliding challenges. Burrow dungeons, groundhog woodchuck specialty. Spirit shrines, upgrade trees, unlock ultimates. 2. Combo system. Chuck chains. Chuck, dash, glide, mid-air chuck, landing slam. Combos generate inner bark energy for ultimates. 3. Social stuff. Multiplayer flavor. Emotes, acorn bow, log spin, respectful chitter, monastery camps, where chipmunks teach passive buffs. What I'll add next if we keep going, pick one direction. 1. Skill trees. Tank, support, striker, engineer with named abilities. 2. Full boss roster, 5 to 8 squirrels plus 2 spirit bosses plus 1 human tech boss. 3. Progression economy, loot tiers, crafting cosmetics, glider parts.
It was pretty freaking cool, right? How cool is that? So that's what we got so far. I personally think you don't necessarily need to do like a system, like a forest system like that. You could just sort of do it hack and slash. You wouldn't have like a forest alert meter. You don't have to, but it would just be like you could do that more like a hardcore mode like that if you wanted to. But I don't know that, necessarily I just picture like acorns laying around and stuff, as pickups. Obviously, yeah, like obviously we talked about crafting materials, bark, resin, vine cords. It's actually not bad. Then, regular pickups like acorns and stuff that would just regularly be laying around because they, like they fell from trees and whatnot. And yeah, likewise, you could do plenty of classes. You do a range like a hunter with like bows and stuff like that. I even mentioned an acorn bow. You could do, um, um, well, obviously you just do like a melee, like a normal, like wood sword or something like that too, if you really wanted to. But like you could like potentially do like some pretty unique like stuff with like ranged, like I talked about already with like including acorns and stuff. That would be interesting if you did something with that. Um, there's like a whole lot of different like classes from different, like a shaman style, like where you already have the element of nature and stuff like that, of like being outside and stuff like that. And so like you could add the like the whole nature element to that. And so like with like shaman, you could do like even different types where it's more like a greenery nature type or wood, like something like that. And then maybe you'd have like a shaman tank or something. Who knows? Yeah, like I'm just saying, like, what's an idea? Pretty cool. I think that sounds cool. Shaman tank. Do totems. But there'd be some other type of element that I would introduce to the game to add the whole bad guy aspect of it. So there'd probably be some other type of element, where like in other games you might have like chaos or something like that. I would just want to think of it, in terms of how it would fit into the game and make sense. And not necessarily that, obviously, but maybe like thorns or something kind of like that, where it could have like like poison type or something. You get what I'm saying? Obviously, you can consider the elements in general. Got fire and water and stuff like that, but It's always fun to do like in between stuff like thorns, you know, obviously. So that's a possibility. I was trying to think like something with vines. So like maybe like a thorns in combination with vine. Don't know. You could do obviously you would with this talk about multiplayer, you'd want to do like healer types, so you could do a support as well. So your healer, you know, would obviously you know, you would use what I just talked about with the nature stuff. So maybe that would be maybe you could do something interesting with that where like water, for some reason water heals or something like that. Or you just have healing, you just have magic in the game. You just fit magic into it somehow. Just trying to avoid that. But like obviously you just fit magic into it. Everything makes sense then. So obviously just like take the concept of the images that you see and just make it more like CGI looking. Yeah, obviously a little less cartoony, a little more CGI looking. It would be less cartoony, a little more CGI looking. I would want that. I wouldn't want it quite like to look like a cartoon necessarily, but just you know, that graphic style. That's all. You know, like that graphic style. A woodchuck game. The name is terrible though. I wouldn't call it that. It was funny though. I love how it goes. We are now clearly designing Woodchuck RPG Forest Ascension. I wouldn't call it that. That is terrible. Terrible name. Flying woodchucks. That's what I call it. I call it flying woodchucks. That's what I'd call it. I call it flying woodchucks. Way better. And you don't let anybody change your mind. Don't let anybody sit there. Everybody's gonna laugh at you when you want to be bold about it. Because that's like, think about how many games are called that. It's a very general, like, of course it's gonna say that. Woodchuck RPG, Forest Ascension. Of course it's gonna say that. You know, like, every game is called that. And Flying Woodchucks. That's a real name. People will actually remember it. And it'll be like, oh, flying? You know? And, yeah. Because you have your gliders. And then, you know, like, let's get, like, maybe a, you know, an endgame flight ability or something, so that way it doesn't, you know, kill it for some people that are like, there's no fly. That are gonna go, there's no fly. You don't do that for them. So that way they can't say that. But it'll be like a milestone. It'll be like a crazy milestone. It'll take a while. But yeah, like, you wouldn't do it. I'm not talking like MMO, just RPG. I like that. And then if you want to do multiplayer, you would do it sort of like this, where you would queue up. You would just do a queue. It'd be so much easier. It was sealed by forest spirits. Definitely. See, that's a good idea. Like burrow dungeons. That's a good idea. Take my idea. I am never gonna do this. Take it. I am never gonna take the idea. I don't care. As long as it's good. I love the boss Baron Nuttingham. That's just so funny. Uses nut barrage. That's great. And tree line or tree run drive. Sorry, tree run dive. Sorry, tree run dive. So diving, tree run attack. That's great. That's so great. So yeah, like he runs up the tree and dies. That'd be great. And then there's a tailspin cyclone. That's an AoE. This is the nut barrage. That'll be a ranged attack. I mean, like, that's great. And that's Baron Nuttingham. That's a boss. That's a boss. There's just one boss. Where's a cracked acorn crown? Awesome. Yeah, he'll be dressed up like a king. You gotta dress him up like a king. He's got like a cracked acorn crown. He's got like one of those king style capes. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Man. So yeah, like it was it was going through this graph here. Um it was just explaining that, like, sort of like at level 1, your max stamina might be 100. Um and so your glide time, is very minimal. And then you get, like a passive bonus. It says splinters resistant, so maybe splinters is another, type that we didn't talk about. And then, again, going through that graph again. So then, if that's level 1, again, level 5, again, that would be then max stamina up to 130. So, like, the previous one, level 1, might have been 100, or now at level 5, you're at 130, and now you've increased the glide time. So, like, thinking about the glider as having, like, a stamina bar, where it sort of, like, kind of counts down, almost like a clock or something like that. And so now maybe that's a 6-second, increase or something like that. And then now maybe it says reduced bark drag. Okay, so you know what I mean. Like you can do like a passive bonus, and that's what it's telling you there. It's just giving like a name. It's not giving like a definition. So I would like obviously be inclined to change that to maybe something else that would make sense to whatever it is that we're doing. But I'm just saying, that's a name. I'm just explaining that's just giving a name there. So again, to explain it, it's saying level, max stamina, glide time, passive bonus. Those are the columns. Okay. So we're going across in rows here. So we just did level 1, level 5. Now level 10, the row level 10 would be max stamina at 170 now. So now an increase of 40 actually, from 130 to 170, and then now another 4-second increase in the glide time. So from 6 seconds to now an increase of 10 seconds from what the minimal that was there. So that's significant, and just increasing that. So it does seem more like you're flying eventually. And then it just says airborne shock for passive bonus. So, and then level 20 is 240, and then 18 seconds, and it says thermal riding. So that's actually kind of cool. Maybe there's a weather effect or something like that. I don't know if you want to survival it or not. But again, level 30, max stamina 320. And glide time maybe at 30 seconds, and I think that's fair. I think that's a decent amount, and maybe capping at a certain point too. Like obviously that's a decent cap, and it just doesn't, and then it says enlightened glide. So, for the passive bonus idea. So that's just the concept of it was just giving you the graph. It was just making sort of a graph there of an idea of a leveling system. So that was what it meant when it said every successful woodchuck grants XP, max stamina, glide efficiency, and then it started going through that. That's what it meant by that. So it was just a graph that was going through there. See, here's here's what's funny. Here's something interesting. New ability, mid-air chuck at level 12. This was really funny. Throw wood while gliding, generates combo multipliers, and forest NPCs become impressed. I actually think that's kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. What if it was like a reputation system too? How cool is that? So now you get to have a reputation-based system You could fit that in for your gear system, where there's certain types and sets of gear that you could get based on reputation gain. You do that. So there you go. So obviously that would be, based on the wood stuff. Whatever your story is for that. Obviously it would be based on that because it's throwing wood, and they're really impressed by this. So obviously you'd want to do it off of that. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying. I think that's pretty funny. So it might actually be a pretty good idea. You definitely want to go funny with this. It sells it to be hilarious. That's the replay value of something like this. It has to be hilarious. I mean, obviously, it's fun and adorable and all that at the same time, but it needs that too. It needs to be hilarious. I just the Baron Nottingham, that's great. Stuff like that helps. So anyway, I really just honestly thought this was hilarious, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I literally just said that. It started with how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. It literally started with that. And, yeah, all this. If you did it right, people would really like something like this. You know what I mean? Like, I honestly, like, if you did it right, I would do it with Unity, though. Just a personal opinion. I would do it with Unity. But, I mean, do it with whatever. Obviously. I'm just saying. It's just my pick. I'm not saying don't use anything else. I'm just saying I would pick Unity, but I'm just saying, like, just a suggestion. That's all, just a suggestion. Obviously, if it's good, then I have nothing to, you know what I mean? Like, if it comes out and it's good, I would have nothing to say. I would have nothing to say. I'd be like, okay, it's good. I can't say anything. I'm in. Seems pretty cool. I like the, So, like, there's definitely some cool, ideas for gear designs there, too. Right, like, right on there. And obviously that's the low-level stuff. That's not, that's not the top. The top tier stuff's gonna look cool, but you don't see that on the main art. Like, don't put that on the main. Like, let people find that stuff. Oh yeah, there's definitely some cool stuff you could do though. I was just thinking about it. There's definitely some really cool gear ideas. And funny stuff. You could do some funny stuff with the gear ideas. Could. Um, I was thinking about like a type, like maybe a healer type that does use magic, um, and then like it's the support type, but then maybe it's also like has like like charms or something like that, and then maybe like it rolls on its back and like laughs hysterically or something like that, and like charms the like the enemy to start laughing too or something like that. You know what I mean? Like how funny would that? I think that would be hilarious. Like it's like just infectious laughter. You know what I mean? Like it just can't help it. It's so funny. maybe and then as it levels up, maybe the next one is like it tells a joke, but like you don't have to have it say anything. You just go and then like they both like fall over laughing or something like that. But like it pulls out a microphone or something like that, and it's like like a charm. How stupid is that? Oh my god, it's so funny though. It's not it's not like it's stupid in a funny way. I think it's a good idea actually. But do some other type of mean casting magic abilities, not just that. Like don't make the whole thing that. That'll tick people off. Don't, because that'll be really annoying I think to work in. That's just like a special ability for that class type. I think just like while it's a charm class or whatever. Like obviously there's gonna still be a main magic type, so maybe that's arcane or whatever the magic type is. I'm sure there's something we could figure out that would be better for the story, for the magic type for the story. I think sticking to the elements might be good. Don't know though. Figure it out. That'd be a good question for the AI. But I do like the laugh idea, and then the level up, like it tells a joke or something. Like it's a stand-up comedian or something. I like that. And then maybe maybe the next one, maybe they increase, and the next one like it busts out like a rock concert, and then like all these chipmunks or woodchucks or something show up, and like one's playing drums, one of them's like playing bass, one playing guitar, and then like it lasts longer. You know what I mean? And it's like a little bit of a song, or something like that. How cool would that be? I think that'd actually be really cool. That'd be a good way to level up that class. I don't know. There's already some ideas for some. Holy shit. Yeah. make sure that if you do it too, you do a survival system in such a way that you don't rip the rewards from the player too. Like, I can't stress enough that it's annoying if you lose something sometimes. Not all the time. Like, obviously, it's expected in some, like a survival game. You know, you have a stick or something like that. Like, obviously, there's going to be durability and stuff like that. But then, likewise, if you have something really awesome, it's going to last. So, like, make those things permanent and, you know, obviously, you know, do that right. I'm just saying, like don't have a system where you, you know, once you're past a certain point, you know, that doesn't just, you know, kick in and you don't lose, you know, things. Or, you know, likewise, do something where, you know, you have a dismantlement, you know, because it would be, a lot of it's going to be based on wood. So I'm sure you could do a system with that where you could break it down and use the materials there too a little bit. That'd be interesting. So there's a lot of different things you could do with that. But I think that it's really going to be important to focus on getting a really good, like for something like this, it's going to be really important to focus on characters and the look of the town and like the main world, like the towns in the main world. I think it's going to be really, really important to get that right, because you're going to want people to, you know, like, again, it's you know, it's one of those games where you're going to put the grind into it to get the leveling done and stuff like that. So obviously you're gonna want to reward the player with, you know, the story and stuff like that, so that way it doesn't feel like a chore. You know, like you want to do it, you know, to find out more about the story, and you know, you just end up playing the game because it's fun, you know. Like, that's the point. Like, don't just, you know, one of those things where just because, you know. So a lot of times, you know, again, spoken dialogue is important for stuff like that. Bunch of text on the screen a lot of times doesn't work too well. But yeah, I mean, like, I know obviously everything doesn't need to have spoken dialogue. It's always nice if you're doing you know, an open town and stuff like that, and there's a lot of different quests and things like that. It's always good to have some that have spoken dialogue at least, so that you can get to know some characters on that basis versus just reading text, if that makes sense. I think that helps. That goes a little bit of a ways as far as immersing the player in the story. So I'm just saying. You could do another class where it's sort of like an engineer, I guess, or something like that. But like the class could be a way for it's another type of healer support class too. And now it works in such a way where it's like engineering, where they repair things for their players. You know, where things lose durability and stuff like that. And now let's say like you maybe don't have some of the best gear yet, or some of your gear does take repair or again at the same time. You know, like that's just some of the extra bonuses that this class will have. But The healing aspects will be that, you know, again, maybe you put down, you know, these you know, these machines or something like that, and the, you know, it's more like AoE. The players get to stand in them, so you got to put them in certain spots, and you know, it emits like an aura or something that heals the player, or something like that. You know, like it's more like tech-based stuff, or like, you know, just like an idea for a different type of healer class that would kind of make sense, where it's you could actually do it based on materials and stuff in the game. So like maybe obviously that's based on stone and stuff. So then you would have to put definitely some mine deposits or something kind of like that in the game, where you would definitely have probably a crafting system based on that, where, you know, we were just talking about the wood and stuff like that for the other stuff. So you know, you would obviously likewise want to obviously have to do that for that then too. So because that's what we're talking about here, you know, like the idea that you're gonna have to make your weapons and stuff initially, find stuff if it's that type of game, you know, like that's the idea. I think that's the idea, you know. I think that's how it sort of kind of feels. But I just didn't necessarily, you know, I mean, like, if you want to have an alert system, fine. I didn't necessarily felt that it was necessary to have some sort of forest alert system. But like I said, I guess I could understand how it would make sense for reputation, certain things with reputation, if you want to do that. But you don't have to. You really don't have to do that with reputation-based systems, especially with gear. You just, you know, increases reputation with, you know, like, again, you complete these things, you get X amount of reputation for doing these things with this particular quest line, these particular, you know, people, you know, like, it's that simple, you know, they list of things you do, therefore you get some reputation, that sort of thing. You don't have to necessarily do it, you know, like that. Or you can, but you don't have to, you know. There's like a bunch of different ways of doing it. So I just think that an alert system seems weird for this. I don't think you want to necessarily do that for this one. Yeah, the forest alert meter. I think you can skip that. I don't think it's necessary to do that one. No, obviously, you have an alert system for distance of, you know, from enemies and stuff. I understand that, but you know, I just mean, you know, you get what I'm saying. Like how it presents that, the way of doing it there. I just don't agree with that, the way it is there. That's it's a little strange. I wouldn't do that for this. It seems a little strange. But yeah, everything else is awesome. This ended up being awesome. I think it did. So yeah, burrow dungeons, and I like the idea of like spirit shrines, because you know, the concept of this is typically how, well, you know, people can be familiar with upgrading and you know, sort of saving progress in games and stuff. So it makes sense to kind of do that. I wonder if there'd be sort of a stone structure in a town, or if spirit shrines in this game would be more like old trees that are like really, really old trees or something. You know what I mean? Because it's the game's sort of like that, you know. I wonder if that it would be more wise to do it like that. And then you could do like really cool looking trees. like different trees, and then like just make some that look, specific to spirit shrines. You could have like a cool glow or something. Would be cool. I'm just like thinking maybe like vines going through it or something that glow. Not like the whole tree, just like vines that glow or something. And then like you could build the spirit part of it into the story, like the spirits of the past and stuff are like in the vines, Be cool. That's why the tree is still there. Yeah, I mean, like, almost like it keeps it going or something. And then thus you could have, like, corrupted ones with bosses and then burrows and stuff. And then, yeah, it says inner bark energy for ultimates, combust inner bark energy for ultimate. So yeah, like it would be based on the trees for sure. That'd be cool. Be a cool way to do it. Cool. A woodchuck / groundhog / squirrel game. / chipmunk game. Like you gotta have the different, like those will be your races, right? Like you'll have different races too, but like the different races will be different like species of like the rodents, right? Like it'll just be woodchucks, groundhogs, chipmunks. You know what I'm saying? And then obviously you can do your classes too, but you'll get to choose. See, I think that's pretty cool. And that way you can just choose one. Woodchucks, groundhogs, chipmunks. Squirrels. Yeah. That'd be cool. And you can have like raccoon bosses and stuff like that. Obviously you could have like enemies that are like just like different evil variations of those other, like woodchucks and chipmunks and stuff like that. But then, like you could have bosses that are like larger ones, like raccoons and stuff like that. And maybe wolves, How crazy would that be? Yeah. Giant, like, wolf or something like that. Or, maybe a den at the top of, like, a cliff or something like that. And there's an eagle inside. Yeah, that's a boss. That'd be cool. And obviously that'd be a tough one. You do a snake. A big snake boss. Yeah. There'd be a lot of different ideas you could do. A lot. Seriously. It would work. And it would be something that you could do for a while. Like it would use a lot of different things you really could do. You'd really just a whole ton of stuff with that. Really, really, just a whole ton of stuff with that. And like, I mean, even ideas for expansions would be there, but you know, there's a lot of content already that you could just throw in without, you know, like the whole idea of expansion just comes out from like the concept that already this is such a huge idea that there's just plenty to build off there anyway, you know. So yeah. So anyway, if somebody wants to take the idea, go ahead. I don't really care. I think it's a good idea. So I'd just be happy to see somebody, you know, do it that actually plans to make the game. There you go. Yeah, Eagle approved flight paths. You could do like flight paths and stuff. Like again, you know, just you know, before you're gliding to a certain point, if you need to get from here to here or something like that, you do flight paths too. I think it would be good to make sure it's open world to the point where you think about it like flight paths and not loading. Like, don't do it like that. You know, don't like make it open world, because that spoils it for people when you don't do that. If you want to have it load when you go into a dungeon or something like that, okay, fine, that's understandable. But like the open terrain needs to be open terrain. Like continental type things. Continental based type things, you know. But yeah, I mean, like, obviously nobody expects, you know, every single game, you know, you to walk into a dungeon or something, you know, and they're not to be able to, yeah, I mean, like, it happens. Nobody, you know, you'd have that's unreasonable to expect that in every game. It just, you know, obviously you strive to ultimately do as little as that as possible, I think. So anyway, yeah, I really didn't have much else to say. Honestly, I just, I thought that was really funny and a really good idea at the same time. And, you know, like, while it was really funny, it's actually a really good idea. You know what I mean? I think it's a really good idea. And, I think it'd be really cool if somebody sort of did it, you know? So, there you go. I mean, you don't even have to. I'm not even worried about PC. Like, it would work fine for console. It'd be fine at PC too, but I just, you know, like, either way, who cares, you know? I think it'd be fine either way. This would be one of those things it shouldn't matter. You could pretty much do those either way. Well, yeah. I guess that's it. I guess I'll go ahead and end the stream. I I wanted to tell you guys, so I told you. So there you go. Thanks for watching this. And I hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed. Feel free to take this idea and make a game. Make it good though, please. See ya. See you later.